So, are you able to present, Gerard?
Totally.
Yes, we can see
And
your screen.
thank you very much, Christoph, and thanks a lot for the opportunity to share what we're doing in the Netherlands, but not only in the Netherlands. It's great to be in this line of speakers, hearing how the European Commission really drives to bring data sovereignty to Europe in a broader sense, and also hearing all the examples of also utilizing the IDS infrastructure. And great to share how iSHARE in that plays an important role. So iSHARE founded in 2016 in the Netherlands and has been developing ever since, merely as a trust network. So what I wanted to do first is to share what the core principles of iSHARE are. This is really about a federated network of trusted parties, where we enable data spaces to onboard their own participants in the iSHARE satellites, where we have a joint legal framework across the iSHARE network, but also allowing data spaces to have extended legal aspects and governance by the participants. Second key point is data sovereignty. So where data only is shared when there's explicit authorization by the data owner. Really on attribute level, so it's not role based, and secure interaction based on the IDAS. Then iSHARE's data model agnostic in the network, so we enable multiple architectures and data standards to be used. Of course, we're working together with many of the standards and are part in that sense with the IDS architecture. Then the federated governance, the data space have full independency to onboard participants in line with the principles and to allow further extension of the legal aspect. And one key element is that cross data space discovery and trust. It's mentioned a couple of times already today that is one of the challenges in data spaces, and that's where iSHARE has been developing and really enabling data spaces to build on trust and really work together. So with that, we have a few components that we bring to data spaces directly. So the legal framework and the iSHARE satellite to register your own participants in your data space and build trust on that based on the legal side. And using the existing authorization structures, which is just open source, which is available online. And with that, 100% in line with the EU principles, because that data sovereignty part is really towards the data owner who can control what's happening. So we're really scaling and growing, and so currently we're already at 50,000 organizations, data of 50,000 organizations available in the network to control. And because we're scaling with data available in the network, we'll end to, and we're growing to data of 1 million organizations by the end of 2022. And with that, you basically can set up your own satellite. I'll cover this already a bit, but I think it's also good to share that satellite is, and also Lars showed it already, is in line with the IDS principles, and it's basically IDS Paris that will be announced also in the new reference architecture model. And where the authorization structure is also in line with the direction IDS is going, where there's also next to authorizations from service provider, also independent authorization rules. So with that, we're really a part of and a realization of that architecture, and usable for many of the data spaces that are already in working. And with that, not only within the data space, we allow really cross data space discovery, because the iSHARE ledger, because that iSHARE register and network is a distributed ledger which is operated by the different satellites. We allow cross data space discovery, which is crucial because an organization can be part of logistics and mobility, but always is also in another segment. So with that, there's so much already there, so that can be used. Like I said, we're data model agnostic, and there's a lot of data already available from the Netherlands. Of course, the port community system providers like Portbase and Nextport, and many other, and live implementations with ideas, for example, Das Logis and other examples. And we're preparing implementations together with federated, where the federated semantics is used combined with iShare for the trust layer and the discovery under that. Well, same goes with IATA. So with that, there's a great foundation for you to actually use it, and it's in line with well, what Lars also shared on the OpenDI model, where data spaces decide on interoperability, the data models, of course the value creation, the marketplace part, but where iShare components really help you to accelerate, save time and effort to restart and build upon this open structure. So I wanted to go in a few minutes, go through a real example where our Central Bureau of Statistics in the Netherlands is collecting data on a daily basis to do their reporting. Because I think with this, I explain, well, some of the differences. So it's just a data space that they selected the data model to actually collect that information. That's all set up. And usually you would send, as a data consumer, a message to your data owners. So with this model, the parties, instead of communicating bilaterally, they can find each other in the iShare network and the iShare satellites. And with that, connect to the data providers. Data providers check against the network whether there's trust, and check where authorizations are stored. Check against the federated authorization registry structure. Have the key exchange to have secure authorization, and to check against the data owner whether there's actual authorization. And if that's not the case, there's a message to the data owner, super low tech. Do you want to create this policy on this specific data set? Because that is what real data sovereignty is. And this is not theory, this is practice. This is how it's working today. And I think this is a great example for, well, mobility and much broader for Europe. And with that, iShare is governed by, well, the participants. So the participants are the data spaces themselves. So where data spaces have influence on what's happening with the iShare Foundation and with the standard and with the network, of course, to jointly assure trust and develop data sovereignty and that trusted network across data spaces, where data spaces again built on architectures that we've seen before, standards that are out there already, but really make sure that finally we can go cross-cutting across different data spaces, geographies, and all that, and really driving data sovereignty and a better economy. So with that, I just wanted to invite you to reach out if you want to have more details, and I really look forward to work with the EU team to really drive this broader in mobility data space. Christoph, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation and for presenting the achievements of iShare. Now is the time for some questions with the different speakers of our panel. So I'll mix a little bit questions from the audience and also some questions coming from my side. I saw there was this interesting question in the chat from Rudiger Pape from BMW asking basically that data doesn't fall from the sky and that resources are needed to gather the data. And so business data sharing ecosystems, they need a business case. And so I wanted actually also to ask you, what are perhaps some economic business models to make sure that these data sharing frameworks, the data spaces are viable, and also for businesses, what are the incentives to participate? I don't know who wants to start. I'm sure several of you have some views on this. Maybe Gerhard, if you want to start, and maybe also it could be interesting to hear from Patrick or so.
So one of the well, good cases that we see at the moment is the principle of horizontal monitoring of data. The whole notion is that there's data everywhere already, and what we do with in the Netherlands with the Central Bureau of Statistics, they collect data from SaaS providers, application providers that are out there already that have the data that usually is reported by organizations. And by using this data sharing, those organizations don't have to report to either Central Bureau of Statistics, but also to other government bodies, because they authorize them to get access to their existing data, which is just a saving and a good starting point. And with that movement, we create basically that infrastructure and the notion for organizations to authorize third parties on their existing data, because I think that is one of the key challenges, how to get organizations to get used to that nature of authorizing third parties to parts of your data. So I think that is a good example. That's just plain saving time in regular reporting.
Okay, so one example is being more efficient, saving resources. Does somebody else want to come in on this topic of business models for data
I can
speakers?
do it as well.
Yes.
For us from the mobility data space in Germany, well, our raison d'etre is actually to